Hello, recorders! Welcome back to It's Recording Time Media. I'm your host, Steven, and before we get on the show, if you're looking to improve your vocal range, want to learn how to develop better communication skills, or want to be a voice actor, please check out Joshua Seth's voice acting class and, sign up for his master class. And there may be a future giveaway from me where you actually win the opportunity to take Josh's classes. Anyway, the links are down below. Anyway, enjoy the show. Hi, I'm Steven, and I got a very special treat with y'all. I am here with Joshua Seth, best known as the voice of Tai from the original Digimon series. How are you doing?
Hey, good morning. I'm doing great. How are you?
Well, I'm doing pretty well myself, Joshua. Anyway, let's jump in. Tell us about your audition process for Tai.
Wow. Oh, you are really jumping right in. The audition process for Tai. I do remember that day. I mean, I remember the building I think it was Sherman Oaks in Los Angeles. And it was a small 2 or 3 story nondescript building, like a lot of voiceover auditions in Hollywood happen to be. And you'd just be driving by, you have no idea what's going on inside. And when I went in, I actually knew several of the people that were involved in the audition because they came over from having worked at Saban, since Saban at that point owned Fox Kids, which put out the original Digimon series. So it was a friendly room when I walked in, and I had worked with some of them on Power Rangers previously, and on where I was the second voice of Alpha 5, ay ay ay, after Richard Horowitz, had initiated the role. So that part set me at ease, and then they gave me artwork for Tai, and I put my body in the Tai pose like that. It was that sort of like aggressive, come on guys, let's save the world. And his voice just came out of me. It wasn't really put on, it was just sort of a slightly higher tweaked version of myself. Oh, and the other thing was they didn't give me much to go on in terms of the script. So I was at the time reading the first Harry Potter book. The first Harry Potter book had just come out, and I like to read out loud. In fact, when I run voiceover classes, or they're online voiceover classes now, I always say the best way to get to know your own voice and what characters are inside of you is to read fiction out loud and do all the characters, because there's enough writing there to really expand upon and find what that character is and develop it fully. So I thought, well, Harry Potter's like 11 years old, a normal guy thrust into amazing circumstances and given powers that he didn't even know he had. Like, there's a lot of parallels between Harry Potter and Tai. Like, similar story arc and age and all of that. So in my head, I'm thinking Harry Potter, but on paper and in front of me, I'm reading Tai. So I kind of did the internal, what you call the internal monologue was Harry Potter, because I didn't have much to go on in terms of the Digimon story, and then the voice just came out of me, and it never really changed throughout the first couple of seasons of Digimon. We just went with it.
It's very fascinating. Anyway, when you were like auditioning for the show, were you like confusing Digimon for Pokemon? Like any comparisons?
No, first of all, I don't watch generally the stuff that I work on, or much that's out in the popular culture, because I'm more of a writer, a reader, and a content creator more than a consumer. And I don't want what I do to be derivative of other things that are out there. Probably if I had watched Pokemon, it would have messed me up because the style is so different. In Pokemon, the characters don't develop and they stay young. And I wasn't coming from that world in my own mind. Like I said, I was coming from the world of reading and books. So that's also the reason that in most of my voice work, I don't go for silly voices, that sort of thing. I believe voice acting is acting. Voice acting is a rarefied version of acting where you have to put all of that emotion through just your voice. You can't also rely on body language and everything else an actor would use. And I come from a theater background. That's the other thing, not just books and writing and reading, but also theater and plays. That's how I came up, was actually in musical theater. So my vocal references are more from musical theater than they are from other cartoons.
Well, actually, I'm actually glad you pointed that out, because there's like this other voice actress, Gray Griffin or Gray DeLuise. She mentioned how she.
Yeah, I follow her on Twitter.
Yeah, she actually mentioned that she hasn't seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, and people were like shocked, and when I posted that clip of her saying that, and people are saying that, why doesn't she just watch it? And it's like, and I keep responding that actors just generally don't watch their own stuff.
I will say, obviously, I've watched Digimon since then, especially now that I have kids and we watch it together, which is great. And one of the reasons that I came back for Digimon Try, partly for the fans, partly to keep the legacy and continuity alive, but also for my kids now, so I could take them to the movie theaters and say, and Daddy's up on the screen. But the only other exception is Akira. I had seen Akira, the original streamlined dub, before I ever did it myself, and loved it. It was one of the reasons I got into voice acting.
Yeah. And also moving on, because how recording for anime is different than regular animation. Did it feel like confusing to like recording for dubbing for anime than like, and was it like more challenging than expected?
It definitely is different. One of the things I like about recording original animation is typically you get to be in the recording booth with the other actors in the scene, like when we recorded the SpongeBob SquarePants movie. Everybody in those scenes, we had soundproofing foam barriers between us, but we could still see over them. We could see each other. We could react and respond. One definition of acting is reacting, right? So if you don't have anybody to play off of, you're acting in a vacuum and it's more difficult. You have to make choices, and they're not always the right choices. You have to rely on your director. So, yeah, from that technical standpoint, dubbing is more difficult. Also, you have to confine your interpretation of those lines into the lip flaps and the actual physical timing that you have in which to do it. But there's another way to look at it, which is it's that those limitations give us sort of a sandbox to play in creatively. By having some boundaries and some definition drawn for you ahead of time, it gives you a framework, sort of like in jazz. So, like in jazz music, the musicians are improvising around a theme, but if you had no theme at all, it would just be cacophonous noise. So, yeah, it's something that I actually grew to enjoy. Those restrictions gave me a framework to play around within.
Yeah, well, that's very fascinating. Anyway, let's see, moving on. Also, like for Digimon, although being a kid show, how surprised were you like the level of writing quality for the show, especially dealing with death? And it's like, isn't this supposed to be a kid show? And like how tensions between the characters arose, especially like when Ty and Matt fought each other, and I was like,
I think that's one of the reasons that Digimon has like almost like a cult following, like fans that have been with us since the beginning 20 years ago, is because it's about something. It's like these, even though it's a fantasy world, within that world, the characters, they grow, they have misgivings about things, especially Ty. He's sort of a reluctant hero, a reluctant warrior, especially in as we continue on in the story arc. And then the relationships grow and change. Like you said, they deal with death, they have arguments and things like that, more mature themes. Kids deal with these things too, and it's not just kids that watch Digimon or enjoy Digimon. Adults do too, and I think one of the reasons is because we see those relationships, and as performers, as actors, I think we treat those in, I want to say, realistic ways. I mean, yeah, it's drawn, it's animation, but some animation can approach these adult themes in real ways. Whether it's human to human or human to Agumon, for instance, it makes it more artful and more emotionally impactful to watch that. I enjoy that it's actually about something.
Yeah, that's very fascinating. Anyway, like for fans, they thought that Ty's like best moment was when he was yelling at Agumon, forcing him to digivolve, and it's like, how do you feel like recording, like if you remember recording that scene and like putting all that like tension into the character? It's like, whoa, this is like getting it, like raising the stakes for the character.
There's been lots of moments like that in Digimon throughout the years, and it's one of the things I love about playing Ty. It's not all rah rah, let's save the world, guys. That would get boring. See the same thing. I mean, some shows are like that. Like every Pokemon, every episode, basically.
Power Rangers.
Well, at least they had different.
I'm actually wearing a Power Ranger shirt.
Yeah, it makes it more interesting. That's also why I like playing villains. Villains are more interesting than the heroes to play generally because they have more emotional range, and it's more fun to do that, especially sort of emotions that you don't get to experiment with in daily life unless you want to lose your friends.
Yeah, well, that's very understandable. And it's like, yeah, and all the voice acting panels I've attended, almost all the VAs say like they prefer being the villain because of like the depth and like the motives. It's like no one's really a villain; everyone's like a hero on their own, right? All right,
Bingo, in their own story, yeah. That's
story,
Hero with 1,000 Faces. That's in that book. Joseph Campbell talked about that. We're all a hero within our own story. And one of the keys to playing a villainous character is to look at the situation through their perspective, through their eyes. See, why do they feel like, they are the victim when in fact they're the perpetrator of the abuse? And that's generally the key to playing it in a way that, whether it's they're the victim or they have the just cause or the righteous cause, even though they're the ones that are destroying the world or the environment in which they move. If you can play that villainous character from the perspective that they are in the right, or that they have been wronged and they're trying to right it, or that their cause is just, even though it is not from anybody else's perspective, then you can play it authentically and powerfully and without being campy and over the top about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that very interesting. Anyway, like moving on now, I want to talk about Digimon Try. Like, were you a little surprised of how the tone is like different from the original, especially how Ty's characterization is like different? It's like, of course, for an actor, you want to want to have something new to work on with the character instead of like repeating like his original motives. Like, how do you feel about recording for Try?
At first, I didn't like it. The very first session that I did for Try. First of all, I didn't know that they were making Try, because at this point I've moved out of Los Angeles. I went on tour like a decade ago, and I always thought when I went on tour with my live shows, initially they were shows and now they're keynote speeches, I always thought, yeah, I'll do this. I'll have somebody else pay for me to go see the world, which I did. I went to like 40 different countries in almost every state, and have had a blast doing it. But I always thought, well, I can always move back to Los Angeles and Hollywood if I need to. If I get tired of this, I want to go back to LA. But I never went back. And then I ended up moving to Florida just so I could live near the beach with my kids and not have traffic, have summer all year round. So I'm out here in Florida right now, even though my background looks like I'm in New York, but that's fake. It's a green screen.
Oh, had me full, because I was like, yeah, I've been to Florida only once last year, and it's like loved it, and it's like
it doesn't look like this. Yeah,
I know.
But that's because I went to college in New York City, and like if I didn't have kids, New York is where I would want to be. Honestly, with kids, I like it down here. But my point about Try is, so I was 3,000 miles away from Hollywood in Florida, hanging out paddleboarding and playing with my kids, when all of a sudden I started getting a bunch of PMs on my in Facebook or Twitter or whatever from people saying, hey, did you know that they are starting production on Digimon Try? No, I didn't know that. Did you know that they've recast? No, I didn't know that. Did you know that Jeff Nimoy, who played Tentomon and Genai and was a writer and a director, like directed the Digimon movie, that he just said on Facebook that he did his Digimon Try recording session. What? And then he got in trouble for that because he wasn't supposed to announce it yet. But the cat was out of the bag when he did it. And I started texting with Jeff, and he said, yeah, here's the contact info for the studio that's doing it now. So I got in touch with them, and I'm like, hey, what am I? Chopped liver? Like, come on. Nobody asked me. And then, to their credit, they reached out to me, apologized that they thought, I'm retired and not interested. So they had a recast Ty. They actually recast Ty with somebody else and had already started recording Ty as another actor for Digimon Try. And they said, look, if you'll fly back to Los Angeles and do this, we'll just throw out what he had already recorded and start fresh with you. And I said, yeah, absolutely. I want to keep Ty alive and as me. So we did that, and then I've been doing it ever since. That's been a few years already. So initially, though, I didn't know what was happening. Then I went out there, and I heard that the music was different. That was the first hit that I got off of Digimon Try, was to hear the music in the opening credits. And I thought, what is this? Like, couldn't they have stuck with Digimon, Digital Monsters, Digimon are the champions? I was missing that, and I even asked them, who was in charge of this decision to not keep a through line from the original series and the original movie to Try? They said, well, we thought about it, but we decided this is a new chapter in the lives of the characters. They're older now. The themes are more mature. The artwork is even different, so the music should be as well. And once I just accepted that is the direction it was going to go in, I changed Ty's voice a little to be less like this. Wait, that's not really it. Ty, I play Ty. Yeah, that's the line I used to get back into him. I play Ty, the leader of the Digimon. So that's how he was early. And then I just dropped him back down into closer to my normal range, and he was more like this for Try. And then for Kazuna, I just let all pretense go, and I basically am voicing Ty as myself. A little. He's got a little scratchiness.
That's it. And speaking of which, now recently we've gotten a new Digimon reboot, and this reboot, like the animation is exactly almost the same as the original. Like I've seen some like new episodes. Like sure, there's some differences. Now, if this were to get, as soon as it gets localized here in the United States, would you be interested in reprising the role, or would you think it's time to pass the goggles to a new generation of voice actors to voice these characters? And would you like to be maybe involved in like coaching the new talents if they're like up and coming actors?
No, I'm Ty. I want to be Ty. I want to always do Ty. Especially now with coronavirus, all voice actors are recording from home and sending the files over the internet. So it doesn't matter that I live thousands of miles from Los Angeles. Everybody's recording from home. The studios are shut down. So there's even less of a reason for them to recast. And I'm making it public here and elsewhere that if the studio reaches out to me and asks me to voice Ty again, yeah, I'll do it. I'll always do it. There's no reason to recast Ty, because I'm here, I'm available. I want to do it for the fans, for the kids, and for my own legacy now, having voiced him for 20 years. So, no, I certainly wouldn't coach anybody else to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's how Kevin
That'd be
Conroy.
that'd be like breaking up with somebody and like, here, I'm going to coach you how to have a better relationship with them. No, my relationship with Ty.
Yeah, I feel like that's how Kevin Conroy feels about Batman. Even though he wants to retire, the fans always bring him back. Him and Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's see. Moving on. Now let's moving on to the next subject about being a public speaker. Now, of course, in like going to college, like one of the most required classes is taking public speaking. Like I took it like when I was a freshman, and yeah, like everyone else, I was like nervous. My teacher was like hard on me, and I felt like actually do have a video of me like doing one of my speeches when I was like this was like almost 8 years ago, and I'm like been meaning to like rewatch it and like to see how like my range has improved or anything. It's like, what do you think? It's like always important to be a good public speaker and have good communication with everyone.
It is very important because no matter what business you're in, what profession you're in, you're only as effective as your ability to communicate. So you could have great ideas in your head, but if you're not able to express them in a way where people believe you, like you, people have to know, like, and trust you before they'll know, like, and trust your ideas or believe in you enough to give you a position or an opportunity to implement them. Your ability to speak with confidence and to project some sense of personal power when you do, that's crucial in business, in your personal relationships, and in your life. Especially for people that want to be a voice actor, it blows me away that they want to put the cart before the horse all the time. How do I get an agent? How do I make a demo tape? How do you train your voice so that our voice is like an instrument, right? We are wind instruments, and the wind. Sorry about that. The wind, right? Is the sounds that we make are riding forth to the listener on a cushion of air. So how do we make that better? Well, that's what I teach in the keynotes, but also in my online boot camps now and in my voiceover master classes. But it's transferable whether or not you want to be a voice actor, because let's say you want to ask for a position in a company, you're going to have to interview. Even if it's online, you're going to have to get on a Zoom call or something and sound like you know what you're talking about. Sound like somebody that others would want to work with, like, trust, believe in. So there's a mindset element to that, but there's a physical element to that too. And I'm living proof of it, because when I started as a voice actor, I had a very young sounding voice. I like when I grew up, I still sounded like a teenager. When I first moved to Hollywood, the only roles that I could get were like, I think the first voice acting role that I got was for Disneyland. It was a radio commercial. Mom, Dad, can we go to Disneyland? And I basically sounded like that, like all the time. Yeah, and only through training my voice and learning how to vocalize in a way that maximized the potential that was within me was I able to expand my opportunities as a voice actor and in dating and just in life in general to sound like the best version of myself. That's what I teach others how to do now.
Well, very inspirational for me. Like for myself, like I originally was planning to take an acting class in college, but I couldn't I just messed up. So instead I took this other acting class, and the drama teacher, she thought I had the most annoying sounding voice ever. Like she wouldn't even let me read out my scripts in the class, because I was mostly like this was like half film students and half theater students. So only
she's
the
a
theater
teacher.
actors
Isn't her job to point out the flaw and show you how to improve it, not just say it's not good and then make you sit in a corner?
Yeah, it's like no, where she's kind of apologized since then, but since then, like even though some people tell me that, oh, you have like a good voice for podcasting, or you have like I don't know the voice of a guy at a charity auction, like hello, would you like this for $10, and it's like, well, I'll work on it one day. Anyway, like moving on from that, it's like I found out I did a little research on you, saying that you're a mentalist. Like what made you want to pick up that kind of skill?
So mentalism, for those that don't know, it's a branch of magic. Some people call it mind reading. It's not technically mind reading. It's a combination of skills and a little BS. That's mostly using memory techniques, rapid mathematical calculations, reading body language, and some magic techniques as well. Basically, you weave all these things together to read the minds of the audience members, essentially, or at least it's perceived as that. And it's my favorite kind of magic to watch, and it's my favorite to do. And I've always had magic as a hobby since I was about 8 years old, which I now teach to my own kids. And to make a living when I first moved to Los Angeles, because I already did magic, I was basically making a living as a kids magician, doing as many as 10 kids parties every weekend. I never had a real job as a result because I always worked for myself and I was able to go out there and do shows. And I always imagined myself on a big stage in Las Vegas or in a theater doing these shows, even though it was a backyard birthday party for little Timmy's 8th birthday. But I did so many of those and I got so good at it that I ended up winning an award at a place called the Magic Castle in the Hollywood Hills. And that gave me the opportunity to tour and actually did give me the opportunity to do it. I did a show in Vegas, big corporate show for 20,000 people at the Mandalay Bay Arena. And I did shows at casinos and theaters and on cruise ships and colleges, maybe about 400 colleges over 12 years of touring. And it just got bigger and bigger. By the time I got good enough at the mentalism and the magic to tour and do that professionally, I'd also gotten successful as a voice actor. So eventually I had to make a choice as to which one I was going to do, because if you split your focus, I wrote a book on focus and how to achieve great things in your life, high performance and achievement through mental focus. The book is called Finding Focus in a Changing World. You can get it on Amazon. One of my points there is you have to say no to a lot in order to focus in on the thing you want to say yes to, the most important thing at that moment for yourself. And when you do that, you can achieve excellence. But if you say yes to everything, like I was doing at the time, yes to 2 different careers at the same time, you can't really fulfill your potential in either of them. So I actually started out in the magic world, went into the voiceover world for a while, went away from it for a while to tour as a mentalist and a hypnotist and a stage hypnotist. And then now have come back since coronavirus, especially, to just being on a microphone all the time. And I love both. I'm on a microphone either way.
Well, Josh, I think everyone that's listening to this will be very motivated by you. And it's like, even I am like myself, like to like improve myself, like, especially if I want to do this podcasting to like a higher degree. And it's like, thank you for the advice you just gave us. And moving on to my final question, it's about your new online masterclass. Like, can you give us a little what to expect people from it if they sign up?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, before you sign up for anything, like I'm giving away some free resources online too, because you might not be in a position to go for the class yet. But even if that's the case, if you go to joshuaseth.com/VO, I think that's where I have put together like a quick start guide to becoming a voice actor. And that's free. You can download that. And that's basically all my advice about what you need to do to prepare yourself to be a voice actor. Just go to joshuaseth.com and click on free voiceover resources or whatever. I think it's at /VO. And then I have another free training, which is Intro to Voice Training. And I think that's joshuaseth.com/free. And that's a series of videos that I put together to explain what it means to train your voice, why that's important, and how you can do that. Like with you, for instance, yeah, you do have really good resonance in your voice. It's in there, but it's limited by some other factors that are, it's kind of like putting a lid on a pressure cooker. Like, that there's stuff going on underneath there, but you can't really see it entirely because of the lid that's on top. So in this case, for you specifically, because I can hear it, I can hear the potential that's in there. And others can too, because they've told you basically what they're saying when they say you have a good podcaster voice or an announcer voice, they're responding to the resonance that you have, which is deeper than my own. But I show you how to unlock that, for instance. So that free training shows that as well. And then every month I'm running what I call the voiceover masterclass. And it's a fairly small group each month on a Zoom call where I'll give you advice, I'll give you audition copy, I'll give you mic technique, I'll show you how to take direction, do cold reading. Some people are doing animation audition reading with me on there. I've got some people who have agents and are professional voice actors, and I've got other people who just had a dream to do this and have never been exposed to this before, and they're all learning from each other, and I really love doing it. It's the same sort of thing that if I were in Hollywood, I would be doing in a voiceover studio, but now you can do it from home. All you need is a microphone. This microphone, it looks really fancy. It only costs about $100. You just got to know what the right kind of equipment to get is, and the voiceover masterclass is within a membership site where I have other resources. Like I recorded a whole long form video on how to use a mixer, what different types of mics are, and why you might want them for different purposes, things like that. So yeah, that's at joshuaseth.com/class. And then the final thing is I have a boot camp that I only run online every quarter, like once every 3 months. It's a 5-day voice training boot camp. And if you're really serious about it, that's the thing to do. I haven't opened registration for the next one yet, but you can put yourself on the waiting list for the next one at joshuaseth.com/bootcamp. That's 5 days of videos and daily lives from me, and at the end, a Zoom group coaching session as well. Once you've gone through that, then you'll really understand how to get the most out of your voice. Again, whether you want to be a voice actor or you just want to improve your vocal communication skills so that you can improve your relationships, because it'll improve every relationship in your life.
Well, thank you, Joshua. That was like very, like, I felt like I just needed to hear that. And of course, my listeners as well. Anyway, thank you very much for your time, Josh. And I speak for every other millennial. Thank you for being a part of Digimon, our childhood. Like, sure, watching the show helped me like find my courage growing up, and a few other things that still resonate with me to this very day. And, it's like, thank you, sir.
Wow, I really appreciate that. And honestly, the other thing I forgot to mention was I'm doing these cameo shout outs all the time. And in the texts, when people request the cameos, they tell me things like that all the time. Digimon got me through a hard time, or my friend has been a fan of Digimon because it's a way to remember that we all have the capacity for courage and to do the right thing when things get hard. So what an honor it has been to carry that mantle and to represent the crest of courage through Thai for all these years. So thank you to everybody who recognizes that.
Anyway, thank you, Joshua. And we're out.